With the draft coming up next month, everyone is going to be talking about the top prospects. In spite of that, I don't want to talk about them. Not just yet. I want to go back and take a look at the 2015 and 2016 first and second overall picks and how unique their careers have been thus far. But before I do get in this video, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated, helps me out more than you can see. Now, let's get right into the weird career of these four quarterback prospects. Starting in 2015, we will go to Jameis Winston, who was the first overall pick from Florida State University. Winston was seen as an amazing prospect, as compared to the likes of Eli Manning, for example. Scouts said that he had amazingly strong arm, good pocket presence, and feels pressure coming, and will make throws that others are scared to make. So far, all of those things are true. Winston does have a great arm, and trust me, he will make those throws that nobody else even thinks of making. But even with all those strengths the scout listed, his worst weaknesses came out in the NFL. The strength of making throws that others will not was also his weakness, throwing into windows that do not exist. Jameis so far throughout his career has been a very, very confusing player. With Tampa, he was always at the top of the league in passing attempts when healthy, but also near the top in interceptions. Watching him just say, "Screw it, someone's down there," is absolutely hilarious, and that is why he's one of my favorite quarterbacks I've ever watched. And this was prevalent in 2019. Jameis led the league in yards with 5,109 and had 33 touchdowns. I think it was second in the league that year. Overall, a pretty good year, right? Well, as we all know, he led the league in interceptions with 30. Yes, 30. Almost 2 a game. Safe to say, Tampa Bay did not re-sign him after his fifth-year option, and ended up in New Orleans under Drew Brees and Sean Payton. After he did not start his first year, sat under Drew Brees and just learned from him and Sean, he started there in his second year. There, he had the highest touchdown percentage of his career at 8.7 and lowest interception percentage by far at 1.9, throwing 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in 7 games. But for the first time in his career, he barely threw the ball, averaging just 24.7 attempts per game in 6.5 games. I said 6.5 because in that 7th game, he tore his ACL and also suffered damage to his MCL after a hit from Devin White. It sucks because it was his most decent season yet. Yes, most decent, because he only completed 59% of his passes on those minimal attempts. And the Saints were 5-2 at the time before his injury. In 2022, Jameis was able to come back, but he only started 3 games before getting injured, and the new head coach Dennis Allen decided to start Andy Dalton the rest of the way, a decision that baffled me all year. This next season in 2023 is going to be an interesting year for Jameis, as he enters the last year of his 2-year, $28 million extension and has to fight for the starting job again. He has had the weirdest and most entertaining career out of all these guys, so let's hope he can come back in 2023. Marcus Mariota was drafted right after Jameis out of Oregon to the Tennessee Titans. He was ranked as the best quarterback in the draft, according to a lot of scouts, as able to make difficult throws and was very, very athletic, and that was prevalent in his comparison to Colin Kaepernick, which makes a lot of sense to me. However, people were concerned due to the simplicity of Oregon's offense. He couldn't really process his reads because it was a 1 or 2 read type of system. Despite that, in his first 2 years, he played pretty well, not turning the ball over as much as Jameis, and he could run the ball. His 3rd year, while the team would make the playoffs and beat Kansas City where he threw a touchdown to himself, he didn't have a good year, tossing 15 interceptions and 13 touchdowns. His 4th year will be more of the same story, except they missed the playoffs this time. Titans did exercise his 5th-year option, and this would be Marcus' last chance to prove he deserved an extension in Tennessee. But that did not happen. In week 6, after a 2-3 start and throwing 2 picks, and just 63 yards on 18 attempts, he would be benched in the 3rd quarter for Ryan Tannehill. After this year, Mariota would become an unrestricted free agent and sign with the Las Vegas Raiders, where he would back up Derek Carr for 2 seasons and have 1 decent game that led people to believe that he might be able to start again. Well, he got that opportunity this past year in Atlanta. Let's just say, it did not go well. At all. As you can see on the clip behind me, that's basically a summary of his season. Marcus left the team late in the year after being benched for Desmond Ridder and debatably playing like the worst quarterback in football outside of Zach Wilson. The Falcons would then go on to release Marcus on February 28th after the relationship between him and the team was not repairable, and let's not forget, he sucked. After being drafted second overall just a few short years ago, nobody knows what is next for Marcus. Maybe he's a backup somewhere like he was in Las Vegas, or maybe his NFL career is over. We'll just have to see what comes in 2023. Now for the only true happy story of this video. Jared Goff was drafted first overall by the LA Rams in 2016, out of Cal University, and was obviously seen as a great prospect, being compared to Matt Ryan. The Rams liked him so much that they traded up for this pick, giving the Titans 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds. Titans were going to stay at this pick, but Laramie Tunsil liked a gas mask. Scouts said that he had a decent enough arm, great deep ball thrower, good footwork, and was mobile in the pocket. Goff would not start his rookie season, but he would come in week 11 of his rookie year, where under Jeff Fisher, he would go 0-7, tossing just 5 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. People were scared for Goff's future after that horrendous start, but some also realized that Jeff Fisher was a terrible head coach, and he was fired in week 14 of the season. The Rams would find his replacement in Washington offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, just a month later. As we all know, McVay would help Goff silence the doubters, as in his second year, he threw 28 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions, would only continue to improve after that. He would make the Pro Bowl in that year, and in his third year, where he would throw 32 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, and in that third year, he even made a Super Bowl appearance where he lost to the team that you saw behind me in the intro, and their offense actually was stagnant all game, which was surprising, given McVay, Todd Gurley, Kupp, Woods, etc. all played really well, and coached well. 7 months after the Super Bowl, they would give Goff a 4-year, $134 million contract with 110 guaranteed, which at the time was the most in the NFL all time. But after that Super Bowl year, he would begin to fall off a little bit, turning the ball over more and honestly just not looking the same. In scouting analysis, they said that he sometimes had accuracy issues, and in those 2 years after the Super Bowl, those were kind of true. 2 years after giving him that extension, the Rams decided it was time to move on, as they traded Goff, 2 first-round picks, and a third-round pick, as we all know the Rams love trading picks, for Lions franchise quarterback Matthew Stafford. This was a sad moment for Goff, as the team that drafted him, the team that he helped bring to a Super Bowl, gave up on him. It was even worse when he had to watch Stafford, Kupp, and the Rams have an amazing season that led to a Super Bowl win over the Bengals just last year. While Goff and Detroit finished 3-13-1. However, this past year he came back with a vengeance. After a 1-6 start, the Lions finished the year 8-2, and Jared looked amazing throughout, as the Lions had one of the best offenses in the league out of nowhere. During this 9-8 season, he tossed 4,438 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, was the 20th ranked quarterback of 41, and had the 4th best DVOA among quarterbacks. Safe to say, Goff is starting to revive his career with the Lions after Dan Campbell instilled his amazing culture into the team. Personally, I think Goff has a good amount of years left being a serviceable starting quarterback in the league. In the right situation, Goff could bring a team to the playoffs, like he almost did with the Lions this year. Even though I think the Lions are great with Goff, I think that soon they are going to move on and Goff's going to have to find a new team. When his deal runs out after 2024, they're not going to want to pay him, so I think they're going to draft a quarterback this year or next year, considering the amount of picks that they have. Last but certainly not least is Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was drafted second overall in 2016 out of North Dakota State. Eagles would also trade up for this pick, giving the Browns 2 firsts, a second, third, and a 4th. And his pro comp is hilarious to me, considering how the last years have gone for him. It was Blake Bortles according to Lance Zierlein. Wentz was coming out of a pro-style offense at NDSU. He's tall, athletic, and can make NFL throws. But the main concern was the competition he faced at NDSU, because it was nothing. His rookie year would not go great. He would throw 14 interceptions and fumble 14 times, which was a league high. The Eagles finished 7-9, but saw Wentz as their future. He would go on the next season to have an almost MVP year. In just 13 games, he was the MVP frontrunner. The team would go 11-2, and he would just ball out, throwing for 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and being PFF's 5th highest ranked quarterback. But his MVP year came to a crashing end when he tore his ACL in a win over Jared Goff and the Rams. Nick Foles would then lead the Eagles to Super Bowl victory over the Patriots in a huge Cinderella story for them. And in my household, we don't talk about that game. We don't. We leave that game out. But the next year, Carson would do decent. A 3-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio, going 5-6 before injuring his back and missing the rest of the year. Wentz was given the keys the next year after Nick Foles took over again and won a playoff game, and finally was healthy for a full season. Right after, he signed a 4-year, $128 million contract. He started in all 16 games, went 9-7, would make the playoffs, and be PFF's 14th highest ranked quarterback, having 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. But before Eagle fans could rejoice about his health, he would get injured 9 snaps into the wildcard game against Seattle, from a kind of a dirty hit from Jadeveon Clowney. The year after that was a crazy one. In the offseason, they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, after fear of Wentz's injuries becoming a huge problem. And as you can see on the screen, I made this video. Yes. Yeah, I said Wentz could win MVP that year. Let's see if I was right. No. Wentz finished as the 34th ranked passer and led the league in interceptions while also fumbling 10 times. Philadelphia obviously gave up on Wentz after this year, trading him to Indianapolis, and they gave Jalen Hurts the reign of quarterback. Carson actually played decent for Indy up until his last 2 games. They would lose to the Raiders 23-20, where Carson only had 148 yards and a score. But the real story is Week 18. In that game, Indy would lose 26-11 to a 2-14 Jaguars team while they were 9-7 at the time. All they had to do was win one of the last 2 games to make the playoffs, and he choked it. Jim Irsay, Colts owner, said that's all I have to see, and they shipped Wentz off to Washington, where I thought that he could have an average season. But, I was wrong. Do you see the trend? I believe too much in Carson Wentz and I'm wrong every time. He was absolutely atrocious. Except in Week 1, he did what he should have done in Week 18 the last year, beating the Jaguars 28-22 and having 4 touchdowns. In Week 2, he would throw 3 touchdowns in a loss to Detroit, but that's all he did. Over the next 4 games, he would play terrible, and then get hurt in Week 5, was placed on IR after Week 6. Even when he was healthy, coming back from IR, Taylor Heineke kept the starting gig until the 4th quarter of Week 16. Sam Howell would start the last game of the year after Carson sucked again in that quarter and another game of football for him. He would then be released by Washington following the season, and it really just is mind-boggling how bad he became so quick. Maybe it's because of the injuries. He's not as mobile as he used to be. Or maybe it's a confidence thing, which is the biggest theory. Wentz lost all of his confidence during that 2020 year in which nothing was going right for the team, and he just mentally has never recovered. Even as a former Carson Wentz stan, it's safe to say he will never get a starting job again, and I am an idiot for ever believing in him after that 2020 year when he played so terribly and I still had faith. It really is crazy how someone can go from the top of almost winning MVP to having injury issues throughout the rest of his career and honestly just not being a good football player, no matter the physical tools that he has. The career arcs of these 4 first and second overall picks is crazy. 3 of them completely fell off a cliff after decent starts to their NFL careers, for the most part, while Jared Goff did the exact opposite. At this point, we all know Marcus Mariota and Carson Wentz will not be anything for any team in the near future, as they both have just sucked too much in the past couple of years. Jameis Winston does have a chance to revive his career in New Orleans in 2023, like he almost did in 2021 before the injury. We'll have to see what happens there. And as for Jared Goff, the clear best quarterback out of the 4, he'll be a starter for years to come. Probably only 1 or 2 more years in Detroit, but he'll continue his career somewhere else. The weirdest part about these 4 is that they're all 30 or younger, with Carson being 30 and Jared Goff only being 28, so they still have a decent amount of career left in them. I hope that maybe Carson and Marcus can try and figure something out, but as of now, it's not going to happen. This situation between the 4 of them is absolutely crazy. And with all that being said, that is it for me, guys. Thank you for tuning into Fanatic Sports. If you made it this far in the video, come on, just give it a like and subscribe to the channel, as any and all support is appreciated, helps the channel out more than you know. Also, make sure you follow me on Instagram at FanaticSports25 and on Twitter and TikTok at Fanatic Sports. This is Joe of Fanatic Sports, signing off.